Hello guys, welcome to Redditor's Revenge. Here we post amazing revenge stories daily, and if you want more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned with us. Moving on to today's first story, in which OP's school boyfriend plotted to make her a social outcast and force her to leave town. So, years later, OP exacted her vengeance on everyone who had humiliated her, including her boyfriend. Now story. My name is Sadie Brown, and I'm finally going to have my revenge. After 25 long years of heartbreak and hardships later, I'm going to destroy the man who tried to destroy my life. I'd never been very popular, but I hadn't been a complete outcast either. I mostly floated around various high school cliques, not landing anywhere and always on the move. This is why when the school quarterback, a hottie named Tristan, showed interest in me, I was over the moon with joy. We lived in a small town where basically everybody knew everybody and they all knew your business. Anyway, after a week of flirting, he asked me out. I was thrilled and excited about such a popular and handsome guy asking me out. I immediately said yes. We became inseparable within a month, and my popularity at high school skyrocketed. I was the cool girl everyone wanted to be friends with. He treated me well, and in the naivety of youth, I thought I loved him and he loved me back. Only afterward would I know how wrong I was. Like all teenagers, after we had dated some time, we got intimate. And like all dumb teenagers, and thanks to our education system's lackluster approach to sex education, we had no idea how to have safe sex. Naturally, as is the outcome in such cases, I got pregnant after 3 months of dating. I freaked out, not knowing what to do and knowing the stigma associated with teen moms. I thought Tristan loved me and would help me figure it all out, so I told him. He was the first person I told, even before my parents. I couldn't have expected his reaction. He was devastated and panicked. The first thing from his mouth was that I should have an abortion as soon as possible before anyone finds out. Shocked, I told him that I couldn't do that. I wanted the baby. I was pro-choice, but I knew that this was the right choice for me. He ran away, saying that he couldn't deal with this right now. Crying and upset, I went to my parents and told them. They were a little disappointed but ultimately told me that I decided to do whatever I wanted, and they would support me wholeheartedly. I told them that since nobody knew about it, I'll think about what to do with a clear mind and come up with a decision. The next day, when I went to school, everybody was looking at me with disgust. My best friend, Carla, came up to me and told me that Tristan had spread a rumor about me that he had been dating me but I had cheated on him and was now pregnant with somebody else's child. I couldn't believe my ears. Appalled, I went up to him in lunch and asked him why he was doing this to me. He acted like I was a cheater and he was disgusted by me. He said he wasn't going to talk to me anymore and that I should go to the man I had cheated on him with. Later, after school, he snuck into my house and told me that he had to do what he did to force me to have an abortion. He said that he was a successful athlete and that being a teen dad would ruin his life. He had plans to go to college on a football scholarship and then try to play football professionally. He couldn't afford for me and the baby to mess up his life and ruin his chance at his dream. He said that his parents had told him to get me to agree to have an abortion at all costs. Angry at his words, I kicked him out of the house. I knew then and there that I would never have an abortion. This baby would come into this world if it was the last thing I did. I decided not to let his ugly comments bother me. I would hold my head up high and carry on as I always had. Nobody was going to make me do something I didn't want to. However, that was easier said than done. Almost overnight, due to Tristan's influence as the star quarterback, and the pressure exerted by his rich and influential parents, the town had turned against me. I and my parents were ostracized from the community. Nobody wanted to be seen talking with us anymore, and everywhere we went, we were met with a frosty reception. Only a few loyal friends took my side at school, but they were also targeted alongside me. My locker was egged, my gym clothes stolen from my locker, and once, I even had rancid tomatoes thrown at me in the hallway. Insults like witch and slut were thrown around all the time, and my mental health took a toll. Even the teacher, who had been lovely to me before, turned a blind eye to the bullying. They couldn't overtly interfere with my grades but made sure to punish me by pairing me with kids who disliked me in projects and passing snide comments like how I was just another statistic. As my pregnancy progressed, my parents advised me to get a paternity test done, throw the results in Tristan's face, and get the whole town to apologize to me. However, I was past that. I knew that I had to focus on myself and the baby, and staying in the town was no longer good for my mental well-being. Thus, with a heavy heart, I decided to move away to my aunt, who lived in another state, till the baby was born and come back stronger. Once at my aunt's, I explained my situation to the local school and got them to accept me as a pupil on paper only. I showed up to school exams but didn't go to school otherwise. Instead, I spent time studying at home and trying to start an online business of my own. I experimented with a lot of stuff, and I started learning coding at home. The level of code that college kids learned, I was determined to make the most of my time away from school. During this time, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy who I named Jake, after my grandfather. Since Tristan had pretty much told me that he didn't care about the kid, I didn't inform him about the birth. Neither did I file for child support in court. I never wanted him to think about the baby or me again. We didn't need and never would. Fast forward a year, and I made it into a top-ranked tech college in the country. It was a 4-year program, and it was hard to juggle my academic responsibilities with that of a full-time, single parent. Luckily, my aunt and her siblings, who were lovely people, helped out with babysitting and some expenses, which made my life very much easier. It was during these 4 years that my parents once told me that Tristan had asked about me once, right after the baby had been born. My parents had asked him what he would do if I had gone through with the pregnancy. Would he step up and raise his kid? His answer had been no. He had just wanted to know because he had scored the football scholarship that he had always wanted and wanted to make sure I wouldn't show up to make life difficult for him. My parents had said that it was none of his concern what I had decided, and that as far as I was concerned, he didn't exist anymore. The next year, Tristan had come down with an injury and had to stop playing. It was a big blow for him and shattered all his dreams of going pro. He lost his scholarship and he had to get a business degree from a local college near our town because the doctors had told him that he would never perform to 100 capacity again. Petty as it was, I derived a great deal of pleasure from this incident. The reason for which he had left me and the baby had blown up in his face. His parents' company, which was responsible for most of their wealth, had also folded, and they had filed for bankruptcy. During this time, I got some amazing news. An app that I had been developing and recently launched had gone viral overnight, and a big hotshot company wanted to buy it. I was approached by other buyers as well, and I chose the one who offered me the most company. I sold my app for a large sum of money and used it to fund my new tech startup. I soon got a lot of investors who wanted to partner with me. My life was turning around. I could afford to hire smart, skilled workers and was able to rake in annual returns that supported me as well as the baby in a lavish lifestyle. On top of that, being the CEO, I was able to take as much time as I wanted to parent, raise, and spend time with my baby. By the time Jake was 10 years old, my company's status had grown to a Fortune 500 company, and it was bringing in billions of dollars per year. By the time Jake turned 25 and I was 41, my company was still going strong. After years of working hard, I wanted to retire. I passed on the company to him and decided that now was the perfect time for revenge. When Jake turned 18, I told him the truth about his father. About learning what kind of man he was. Jake hated him. He had always wanted revenge on him, but I had told him to bide his time. Now, with Jake all grown up and able to manage the company on his own, it was time. Nobody back home knew Jake at all, and they had pretty much forgotten about me and the events of 25 years ago. My now-aged parents still lived there, and aside from the occasional taunts of a cheater's daughter, things were back to normal with them as well. Jake opened up a branch of the company in our town, which had expanded and was a well-sized district now. He started hiring local workers, including Tristan, who he hired as a high-level executive. Tristan, whose football career had been a flop and whose business career had never taken off, was over the moon. He puffed up with pride and bragged to everyone that he was the man. From the day he joined, however, my son started planning fake evidence against him related to the embezzlement of funds. He also targeted the people who had been mean to me and my family back when I still lived in the town. He did it slowly and gradually, for 3.5 years. The company, like all of our previous ventures, was a hit largely because of the highly competent outsiders that we had hired. From what I heard, Tristan was a slacker who spent all day talking about all the projects he was heading but never doing any of the actual work. This worked for us, as our plans hinged on him not discovering the trap until it was too late. During this time, I quietly bought a large chunk of the land that the town was built on. Jake bought some more, under the guise of expanding the company property. By the time our 3.5 years were up, we owned close to 40% of the land within the town boundaries. We started by leaking Tristan's embezzlement news to the press. His face was splashed on all the major news channels that covered stock market and business news. An investigation was launched into his wrongdoings, and during the court proceedings, we also leaked doctored emails between Tristan and a high-ranking employee of a business firm, which we had sent using his username and handle. He was sued for a large amount of money. He pleaded his innocence and said that he didn't know anything about fraud or embezzlement, but we had done our job thoroughly and covered our tracks. We opened investigations into several other employees too, mostly the one that I wanted to take revenge on. The case was long and tough and was postponed many times with multiple hearings. During this time, Tristan had been fired from his job and had to fund a lawyer out of his pocket. He was in dire financial straits until I quietly offered to buy his house for a considerably lower amount of money than the market price, through a third-party buyer. Since his financial condition was desperate, he agreed and sold his house at a loss. Now, with all the cards in my hand, I finally decided to reveal myself. I went back to the town and showed up at his doorstep with Jake. He was surprised to see me, and even more surprised to see Jake. He asked me what I was doing there and where did Jake factor into all of this. I finally revealed the truth, that after being scorned and abandoned by him, I had gone on to do great things and I was back for my revenge. I told him that Jake was his son and that he had helped me take him down. Furthermore, I informed him that I had bought his house and left him with nothing. I was going to win the court case anyway, and then he'd be jobless and crippled with debt, and all the money that he had to pay back to the company in damages. He seemed shocked and exploded in anger, saying he would tell the court that I had framed him. I laughed in his face and told him that there was no way he could link it back to me and no way to prove to anyone that Jake was his son either. He had wanted nothing to do with him, and so I hadn't even put his name on the birth certificate. He had no legal leg to stand on and couldn't prove anything was a setup. He tried another tactic, saying that he was sorry and asked for my forgiveness. I replied that he had tried to ruin my life, and for what? Nothing. He was a washed-up, middle-aged man with nothing and I had everything. I wasn't going to have any mercy on him. I left him crying in his house and told him that since I had bought the house he only had 2 weeks to move out. Later that day, I went to the weekly town hall meeting taking place and announced my presence, telling everyone that I owned the company that was suing them and I also owned a large portion of the town now. They were surprised and shocked to see me and asked me why I was doing this. I reminded them of their disgusting behavior 25 years ago and how they had run me out of town. The entire town said they were sorry, but I told them that I didn't care and that living conditions for them in this town were about to become a lot worse. 3 months later, the court decided to jail Tristan on account of the embezzlement and fraud for 4 years and ordered him and a large number of people in the town to pay fines and pay the company back in damages. Tristan went to jail and I tortured the town people as I saw fit, like they had done to me all those years ago. I moved my parents out of the town and we relocated to a better state. In the end, I had everything that Tristan didn't have: freedom, family, and the financial capacity to live a good life. Now, here is the end of our today's first story, and I hope you guys enjoyed my content. So, in my opinion, Tristan isn't a hole, but his parents were much worse because they accused innocent OP for infidelity and encouraged his wrongdoings. But they forgot about karma, so while karma destroying them was pleasurable enough, the vengeance by OP and her son was the icing on the cake. Guys, let me know your opinion about this story in the comments section, and I love to read your opinions. So before moving to the final story, please hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel to stay tuned with us for more awesome stories. Now moving to our final story, about how OP exposed a guy from her college who was planning to drug her and have sexual relations with her. So OP ruined his entire life and got him kicked out of every place. Now story. Going back a few months, I had just started college and was making new friends. Now, I'm quite an outgoing person in the sense that I will talk to anyone about anything. Anyways, it's been about 2 weeks now and this guy comes up to me and compliments my outfit, was looking like a school shooter with Doc Martens, etc. And so obviously I say thank you, flash a smile, and talk for about 5 minutes before leaving to go to class. Later that day, this kid came back to find me and we exchanged social media and stuff. Overall, this guy seemed pretty cool. We start to build a friendship, things are going okay. It all goes downhill from here and I think it is my fault, but still doesn't excuse his future shitty behavior. Essentially, I was asked to go to the cinema. At this point, I was being very naive and didn't see that he was flirting with me the whole time. Eventually, we go in to watch the movie, and halfway through, he goes and does the cliché yawning arm thing. Luckily, it was near the end of the movie. Afterward, we go home and he messages me all night. He tells me he likes me a lot. I put him in the friend zone as nicely as possible. Things carry on for a few weeks as normal, we hang out as friends. Then things escalate. He starts putting his arm around me in college in front of my friends, going in to kiss me and cuddling me every chance he gets. I tell him to stop and said again that I just wanted to be friends. I told my friends about the situation just so they knew what was going off. At this point, I tried to avoid him as much as possible. He spammed me with messages asking why I was ignoring him and kept ringing me. I answer him explaining that he is being way too clingy and that I'm distancing myself because even after saying multiple times, he still kept insisting I wanted to be more than friends. He apologized and me being way too kind, naive, and anxious, I forgave him and proceeded to hang out with him another time. Big mistake. He asks me to meet him in town, and I do think things are gonna be platonic. Oh, boy was I wrong. He was trying to hold my hand and putting his arm around my waist every time I pulled my hand away. We got to this slightly secluded place, not so secluded that there was nobody else there at all. But it wasn't crowded and you'd only see people walking past every 10 minutes with their dogs, etc. And he proceeds to make out with me, despite me pushing him away many times. After I pushed him away one last time, he puts his hands on my neck and starts choking me, making sexual comments to me. At this point, I was too shocked to say anything and I couldn't escape as he was a lot taller than me. I'm only 4'8", he was around 5'11". He let go and I just walked away from him, not saying a single word. I went home and didn't talk to him at all, ignoring all his messages and calls and eventually blocking him. This still wasn't enough. He would always come up to me in college and pull the same shit, putting his arm around me and trying to make out, etc. I run off to the lesson and tell my tutor, and he said he's gotten people to keep an eye on me. Knowing I had done this, he decided to turn super toxic and use my past against me. After I reported him, he decided to tell some higher people at college that he is concerned for my mental health and is worried I'm going to hurt myself or others, which pissed me off because my mental health had been the best it ever has at that time, and having this happen to me in the past. I knew that I was in for a lot of supervision, meetings, and counseling sessions that I didn't mean. This pissed me off with something chronic. My snaky plan unravels. I'm not proud of what I did, but I don't regret it one bit. I decide to unblock his number and start apologizing, saying I was overreacting, etc. We flirt back and forth for weeks. He now thinks that I am really, really into him. Up comes a house party that he was invited to. He asked me to go with him. This is the night for me to ducking destroy his feelings. As if I didn't hate him already, I get warned by several people, based on his mates who have fallen out with him over this, that he was going to get me super drunk and get me to have intimate with him. He told them that if I wasn't going to do it, he'd roofie me and make me. They also provided proof of him holding a little baggie with about 4 pills in it. This made me full-on despise him. He had told everyone at the party that I and he were actually together, even though we weren't. This is when I was telling people that we weren't and slowly started telling the other girls to be careful and to watch their drinks, showing them what I had been sent, etc. Eventually, the music has to get turned down BC. It's a house party and it had gone past 10 p.m. We all sat in one room and started playing Truth or Dare. Every time it was my turn, I always asked him questions like, if a girl tells you she just wants to be friends, do you carry on harassing her? He eventually left and went into the kitchen. This was my time to expose him. I go in and get everyone to stand at the door when I start giving him this whole villainous speech that went something like this. I don't know it word for word considering this happened early November, just before my 17th birthday. It doesn't feel nice, does it? He's like, what the duck are you on about? I just say to be constantly lied to. I don't ducking like you. You have sexually harassed me for months now and you made me feel so uncomfortable. Don't you dare try to spike my drink. I know you had a plan to have your way with me whether I like it or not. At this point, he started spouting off about him having a mental illness and blaming it on that. He was obviously faking it and everyone could call bullshit. After experiencing mental health issues all my life and being in and out of institutions, his remarks made me feel sick to my stomach. As I got really angry at this, I started saying some really twisted things to him but wasn't lying. At this point, he clenched his fist and went to punch me. The people crowded round at the door had come in and stopped him from punching me, kicked him out of the house, and were all making sure I was okay, etc. All of his best friends were there. Safe to say they don't speak to him at all anymore. The rest of the night was amazing without him. The next day rolls around and I wake up to him spamming me again, calling me obscenities. I wanted more revenge. I screenshot all the vulgar messages he'd sent over all the months, used the screenshots his friends had sent me about his plans and showed them to all the people higher up in college and his parents. In the end, he got kicked out of college and put on the sex offenders list for 12 years. I'm not sure if he did any jail time as I have not heard of or seen him since all of this, as he blocked me on every social media, including Xbox. All I know is that he lost all of his friends and someone even told me that his parents have completely disowned him and kicked him out of his house. Now that's it for today. Here is the end of our final story. Guys, let me know your opinion about this story and about the revenge OP took on this abuse of a hole in the comments section. So before leaving, please hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel to stay tuned with us for more awesome stories.